Congratulations, you got married. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was sorry if it's a little dark. I can turn some more lights on. But yeah, it was a really busy day. You know,
Yeah,
we were running around from about 9 a.m. until the ceremony at about 6.
yeah.
Um, and then yeah, after that we just kind of relaxed. It wasn't anything crazy. It was very small, just a couple witnesses and the pastor. So it was good.
Wow. Small and intimate. Once again,
Yeah.
congratulations. You had quite a full-on journey and going back and forth, and I'm stoked that you're able to even do it. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so when you messaged and said the moving vehicle arrived because you're in the middle of move as well and getting married and launching this new product and everything. So full on, man. And good on you for trailing through it.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. We are planning on getting married. I have a full-time job as well that I do, and
Yeah.
I got a job across the country, which is where we're moving to. We're moving down to Texas from the north part of the United States. So
Yeah.
we're planning a move across the country, getting married, launching and contributing and updating PySAS and
Yeah.
and I have a part-time job as well too. So I just have a couple of spare minutes a day. It feels like so.
So very full on. So that's so awesome. And so regarding PySAS,
Yeah,
um, tell me a little bit more about how you came to the idea of this product and what sort of inspired you to develop that.
the whole idea behind PySAS is that a lot of times developers find it daunting to launch a software as a service product solely because you need to deal with authentication, you need to deal with a front end website, and all of these more complex ideas that sometimes developers who have a really great idea don't necessarily have the all the way rounded skills, and they don't have a full development team behind them. So the big idea behind PySAS is um, to make some boilerplate code that can make a Python developer, like a mid-level Python developer, somebody who isn't necessarily brand new to coding.
Hmm.
There are a couple more complex topics that need to be known, but give a developer who has at least a little bit of experience a way to get into this very fast. And
Yeah.
especially with how PySAS is set up, it handles authentication, it handles your the management of subscriptions through lemon squeezy and things like that. So it just comes right out of the box with the ability to launch a product. And that's kind of the idea behind where it came from. Is we needed I saw that a good launch point was needed, and that's
Yeah.
where it came from.
Yeah, I think one of the other added advantage to your product is stack choice. So, for example, with my past, I've been some of my failures to certain projects is the choice of stack that I made, and so and because of maybe I let certain team members make the choice of stack maybe wasn't the right choice for the longevity of the project, which led to one of the leading factors to probably failure. And so one of the major added advantage for PySAS is there's pure Python code. So there's like the best stack is no stack.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's another just beautiful feature of PySAS is that
Yeah,
you don't have to learn JavaScript.
yeah,
You don't have to learn some other type of language in order to code with it. You only need to know
yeah,
Python. And especially, a lot of people these days pick up Python as either like the first one or one they like to use just because it's easier.
Mhm.
It's that's another added advantage to it as well.
So I have a question. For example, someone looking to build a SaaS company, which is, by the way, trending. So awesome product. I think that it's going to be a success. It's right in the heart of Python, AI, and software startups. So
Thank you.
there needs to be something like your product to have that rapid progression. But so for example, there's traditional stacks like Laravel, which is based on PHP, and then you've got there's so many stack choice. But what would you advise someone who's just wanting to get started? Perhaps let's say they have a software idea, and like how does someone go about making stack choice, or perhaps even coming to a point where they say Python or PySAAS is the best suited for that project? Like, does it have a project category or of certain type of functionality that it suits better for versus the other?
Yeah, so I think, I can give a little pointer to that, where you mentioned earlier, stack choice is like a big portion of the success of a project because if you choose the wrong stack, you might get locked into something that you don't like.
Mm,
And speaking directly to PySAS is that it uses Reflex, which was formerly known as Pinecone.
Pinecone.
I
Hmm.
when I recently updated the code base over to the new Reflex rebrand of them.
Hmm.
What it does is it compiles it down to a Next.js app, and then it just Reflex just wraps React components. So, you know, the things that people interact with are actually JavaScript components, but the way that Reflex works is that you code it purely in Python. You don't have to know a lick of JavaScript, and you can get all of the functionality of that straight out of Python. It looks to be getting really dark in here. Let
No
me turn
worries.
on a
Yeah, yeah,
lighter
yeah.
too.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. I figured after I answered that one, maybe it'd be a good time.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, and I'm in Minnesota right now, and it gets dark so quickly. How is that? Is that a little bit better?
That's better. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. If
good.
you could perhaps just center yourself a little bit, that'd be awesome. I'm not sure if oh you're hiding the light behind you. That's fine.
Okay,
That's right.
I think I
Yeah.
can do it. We'll see.
Yeah.
I recently I'm switching over my computers and stuff, so I'm
No, that's
having to.
completely fine. You're in the middle of a move. In fact, I'm just getting started as well. So, I sort of had to set up around my work area, and I because like it's so important nowadays, especially with so much content coming out, and be able to promote to actually go out on multiple platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and to be able to differentiate our product because there's overabundance of code and people promising to do things. There's a lot of SaaS boilerplates.
Yep.
And I myself launched a project a long time ago called WP SaaS, which was
Okay.
essentially utilizing WordPress multi-user functionality, which is built-in function in WordPress, and you could activate it in the config file, and it turns this entire WordPress architecture into almost a multi-tenancy structure.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it instantly does that. And WordPress doesn't even promote that, but it's called
Right.
WPMU. And so you can actually build, software products on top of it, which is
Wow.
add plugins and then you could deploy it and just add a billing plugin and, you know. So,
Wow.
which brings me to the next question. Like, for
Yeah.
example, when you have an idea, of a product. And so, for example, the reason how I found you was trying to find a boilerplate that fit Python because the rapid rise of AI and obviously the main running language behind it is Python. So the more we, you know, try to constrain the stack choice, minimize the more efficient the system becomes. So I thought I want a boilerplate system which is pure Python, and yours came up, and at that time Reflex was also known as Pinecone. So my stack
Right.
was Pinecone, then Pinecone again, which is a vector memory. So it's Pinecone, Pinecone, PySAAS, and then there was something else, and so it was very interesting. But the idea was an AI application. So obviously utilizing OpenAI API. So if someone was to get started with, let's say, an AI project, how would your product fit in, and how would it benefit the people looking for it?
Yeah. So as far as AI specifically, what we would be looking at is the main focus of PySAS and the main bread and butter of what it does is it handles your subscription management and user authentication, and then from there, your imagination is essentially the limit. So what you would do is you can set up a subscription based um, access model for a just an example, and have certain degrees, certain platforms of, okay, I have the low tier paying for this one, and then the medium tier has this functionality, then the high tier has every single bell and whistle you would do. And what you do is that is where PySAS really shines, is that it handles all of that kind of nitty gritty SaaS model. Essentially, it handles the entire SaaS model, and then inside of it, you would then place your application, because you can do all sorts of customization with Reflex, and all sorts of pages and all of these things, purely based on the already wrapped in user authentication and subscription management, and you can manage it from there. I had a customer email in, um, looking to use it in a little bit different way than we had the boilerplate setup. We have subscriptions are kind of the main focus, but they wanted to incorporate more products. So
Mm-hmm.
even in that instance, you can take the boilerplate we have already,
Yeah.
add to your whatever kind of environment you would like to make, and then adjust the boilerplate as you see fit. And that is a perfectly fine way to use it as well. And I think that's where it really shines, is that, um, your imagination is essentially the limit. And because it's Python, like you said,
Mm.
Python is really the base of where all of this AI is really starting to crop up. And you can use any single Python plugin, all of these things right into it because it's all written in Python.
From my research, I reckon your product is the one that I found closest match to what I was wanting, which was AI and a lot of API driven stuff. So
Yeah.
it's right there. Do you have plans to put Stripe payment gateway options
So
and
yeah,
crypto
the
perhaps?
Yeah, the different payment processors is something that I'm really looking into. Lemon Squeezy was kind of the first in the gate. This is still, PySAS itself is still a really early product. We've really only been around for a little over a month.
Yeah,
So when you try to get something out of the gate into the market, you
yeah.
really want to just make sure you have a functional product, and then improve upon that. And Stripe payment gateways, that's one. I've been digging into their documentation and looking at different ways to incorporate Stripe, as well as looking at different authentication methods. If you don't necessarily like Google's Firebase, looking at different ways to do authentication there. I've also had customers ask me about AWS and relational databases with AWS. So I'm looking at improving each of those specific facets in multiple ways, and
Mhm.
I'm currently building up a roadmap outside of all of the moving and stuff I'm doing. But it's there's a lot of things that I'd like to do, and Stripe is one of the higher on the list that I would like to implement for a payment gateway.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for that. In terms of what are your thoughts on security, which is obviously always my major concern, and what my thought process goes into. Fair enough. What are your thoughts into security when it comes to Python? Now, I'm not very familiar with Python, but what advice do you have to give around application security? for software as a service products.
Yeah, the as far as that goes, I always advise to, don't be making system calls in your applications. Don't be doing any of the kind of basic things. But when you're building out an application, make sure you use vetted packages. Don't be finding any sort of package you see out on the internet, or you do a pip install for some package that you'd like to use. Make sure you do some research, because more and more frequently we start to see malicious packages out there that look to be something that would be very beneficial for a Python application, but then turn out to be a huge security loophole, and in the back end they're doing some sort of magic to get your information or something like that. And then speaking to PySAS specifically too, since we're using Firebase, that's a well tested user authentication, and then Lemon Squeezy itself is secure, as far as payment gateways go, and making sure the um, subscriptions, all of that stuff is secure. And then as well, since we're dealing with web, you want to make sure that you have your SSL certificates installed, so everything's encrypted over the web. The standard stuff. But the main thing, especially with Python, I would say, is do your research on the packages you're using. That's kind of the big one I've been seeing in the news recently.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on AI, and is it going to replace developers?
I I have, I've talked about this with quite a few people. They kind of know me as a computer guy. Anybody who's not in the computer space really asks about, oh, well, what do you think about AI? And I have friends in one side of the boat or the other. It's, oh, AI is bad news. We shouldn't deal with it. Like, how does it know all my information? X, Y, or Z. But I feel like I don't think that AI is going to replace us anytime soon. AI can definitely help, and that's what I view AI as a tool. It's there. Especially with the one that people are most familiar with. Chat GPT. That is a language model. It doesn't know what it's saying. It's just using, without going into detail, it's just matching language patterns, right? It's not thinking of an answer for you. So it's like, I view it as a tool, and I really think that we should embrace it as a tool, and not look to it as in a threatened way. We should
Mm.
really use it, and benefit from it, because there are a lot of smart people who've made these tools, and they can be very beneficial, and they can be a really good teacher if you need to learn something very quickly. You just need to parse out the data a little bit, not take it
Yeah.
all as fact, because sometimes it can be wrong, but really use it as like a launch point, kind of, or a tool.
Mm. We almost have to self-prompt ourselves to be like, this is a tool, so we are
Yeah.
using it as a tool. But it's at the same time, it's because I listen to a lot of podcasters also, like in AI field, like Morgan Dot, for example, and he emphasizes that we need to show it almost respect and talk to it like nicely, like you're talking to a human being with proper ethics, because it's learning from us. How we treat it now is probably gonna how it's gonna treat us in future, and if we're gonna be using it as a tool, will be its tool. So he
Yeah.
sort of brings that perspective, and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, well, before I used to just prompt it without hello and please, and now I'm a little bit like hi, just sort of you never know. But one thing in terms of job losses, and that's already happening. For example, I've replaced writers. AI experts stop me. Writing is not my strong suit, but launching a website, for example, writing all the documents and stuff on it, it's I always had to get writers, and it can be a massive part of the budget. And so utilizing GPT-4 specifically, I was able to save a lot of time going back and forth in terms of writing. And so I thought to myself, well, I've just did not pay a writer at the moment.
Yeah.
But I then have someone, for example, on AI experts who's actually a writer, and she used to be our writer before. And I said to her, "You're an excellent writer. Why don't you just learn to include AI prompt engineering in it so you can actually create your baselines and actually push out more work?" Because the goal when you start a writing, you sort of have a goal what you want to achieve in that writing, and you're the one setting that goal and objective, therefore you could just turn that into a prompt as well. And so, like, one advice that I'm giving to even developers and writers and people who are sort of losing their jobs is learn to adapt this technology, and obviously not completely have reliance on it, because then we'll just be bored, but more so keep up with it, be aware, be knowledgeable, see it as a tool, but be nice to it. And so that's where my thought process lies. In terms of the baseline of your product, PySAAS, which is Reflex and Python. Reflex, when it originally was known as Pinecone, was also featured on one of the presentations by OpenAI. So I thought to myself, well, if OpenAI actually paid attention to Pinecone, which was now known as Reflex, which your application utilizes, and I thought that, that's a pretty good source where it's coming from. So I was particularly excited about that, obviously, which is your product is pretty quality. What are your thoughts again on Reflex? Like, and why do you think they changed their name?
Well, that itself is a good question. I haven't really dug into that as much, and reading their blog post about the rebrand, I couldn't necessarily suss out any sort of extra information. I think maybe um, seeing their website now, they're potentially, or they are branching into hosting, and like no back end, and they'll host your web application. Potentially moving away from like a Python specific brand to more of a generic term, like reflex.dev is their current URL for their website. So maybe if they're looking to expand a little bit, that might be the reason they're rebranding. But essentially their code base is identical. There's really um, nothing crazy that you would need to um, do differently, and they even include tools to update from Pinecone to Reflex, and that'll automatically happen for you. So I don't necessarily think um, there's anything magical behind the scenes or anything like that, but
Yeah.
at least from a business standpoint, it to me, and just looking from the outside, having no direct internal knowledge of any of it, it just seems like it's a maybe more of a business move than anything. And i I think it's great. I think Reflex is still a really good name, um,
Hmm.
and the product works,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
working well.
I think it's a great move for their branding effort. So kudos to Reflex for doing that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, I feel like in this field at the moment, there is two competing. Not that they're in the similar stuff, because Pinecone, which is the vector storage, is trending at the moment with the rise of AI and memory. And Pinecone, on the other hand, which is now Reflex, was also on the rise because it's Python based, and a lot of AI developers are looking for frameworks. And like me, trying to research, and I found your product, which is based on Pinecone. So I think it's a good strategy, and Reflex works really really well too. I got a question for you. What would you say to one developer who's looking to utilize your product to perhaps save time? That's one. And number two, perhaps an entrepreneur who's not a developer but has a product idea. How would they go about choosing your product as their stack? So two in one question.
Yeah. So the first one. So for a developer who is, looking to get into the SaaS space, you know, I'm really trying to, encourage folks to not necessarily see PySaaS as like the entire solution, because the biggest part of the solution is your idea. And I
Mm.
think that's really what I want to drive home, is that PySaaS is meant to be the diving board to get you into the pool, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a really great tool to take subscriptions off of your mind, take authentication off of your mind, take blogging off of your mind. These things are incorporated right into it. You don't have to think about extra tools needed to do that. But what the real true idea is, your product you'd like to build. And that's really where PySaaS shines, is that it's not necessarily where the spotlight is, but it helps you get into the spotlight with your idea. So, I would say if you have a really good idea as a developer and just really want to get to market quickly, PySaaS is an amazing solution. And it's, as I continue to build out features of PySaaS, different authentication methods, different subscription things, potentially different blogging platforms as well, it's going to become more built out, and, you'll be able to use different things, but still the thing that should be in the spotlight is your idea. So, if you need to get it to market quickly, PySaaS is the, really where it shines. Um, yeah.
Awesome. Could you recommend any resources, tools, or books to people getting started out there, perhaps in the software industry?
When I was learning, I'm a self-taught developer. I don't have, any sort of programming background in school or anything like that. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube. To be honest with you, that's
It seems
back
to be the
before you.
learning source.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've also used things like Udemy and Coursera.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
just getting, if I'm truly brand new, I would potentially look at one of the more structured learnings, like Udemy or Coursera, just for like a Python 101. What do I do? How do I even start, writing a Python application? I would recommend something a little more structured. But if you have a little bit of experience and you feel like you have a little bit of a grip, um, build stuff. Honestly,
mm,
build
mm.
anything you can think of. That is the, I studied a lot of theory on, I read articles. I'm like, okay, well, it makes sense in my head. How do I actually do it? And until I started actually making applications, um, it just didn't click to me. I started making applications in the blockchain space,
Mm.
cryptocurrency and things like that. And until I started actually just building out fun little applications that, nobody would use, but it's like, I had this idea, just make it, just do it. And, when you run into something you don't know how to do, look it up and learn it. And then that way you solve a direct problem you ran into while doing your coding. And
Mm.
by doing that over time, you learn how to build things, and then also learn how to look up solutions to your problem. So it's kind of a twofold thing. You're learning how to code, but then you're also learning how to problem solve and, use your resources well. So,
Yeah.
very long winded, but I would say, if you're brand new, find something a little more structured, as far as like a Python 101. But if you have a little bit of experience and you feel okay, I would say, build stuff and
Yeah.
look up the problems as you run into them.
In terms of servers, I see on your website you're promoting DigitalOcean. I love DigitalOcean, by the way. What are your thoughts on DigitalOcean Railway, or would you recommend your service hosted on Azure or Amazon?
I That's kind of the great thing about PySAS, is it can go anywhere. And in my personal development, I started using DigitalOcean even before PySAS, but
Hmm.
I've also used services like Linode. I've used AWS for multiple different things, um, and because it's Python and it can run essentially anywhere, you could launch it on anything that, I usually recommend like Ubuntu Linux as your operating system.
Yeah.
But you know, we started just with DigitalOcean because that was the easiest to just get up and running. But I plan on. I know I have another customer who's asking for some AWS documentation, so that is in the works just to give people more of an option. Because it truly is flexible. So I would say if you want to follow along in our documentation, DigitalOcean is great. I've used them for years, honestly, probably over 5 years, but it works on any sort of service you feel comfortable with. So, we wanted to give a good example of a reputable company to use as a hosting service, but, you know, anything you feel comfortable with should be okay.
Awesome. And like I said, I'm promoting your product. I'm also your partner on AIexperts.me. Awesome again. Thank you so much for that. And so I'm looking forward to getting your product out there to people perhaps looking to save time by using your product in their stack. So looking forward to that. And in terms of a coupon code, would you like to share a coupon code to the viewers
Oh,
for your product?
absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely feel like our partnership is very, very valuable. And, I feel like PySAS is going to be invaluable to a lot of different people. So,
Mhm.
I have a 10% discount code for PySAS for your viewers and subscribers and readers and however you, you know, see this
Push
content.
this out.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it probably will turn into also short form videos as well. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's
But
perfect.
Brandon, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you, and once again, congratulations on your wedding and on the move and
Yep.
on the product launch. You've got so much going on, and so I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for giving that discount code to everyone listening as well. And we look forward to continue to see more updates for PySAS and to see its journey. And I will obviously be in touch with you, and even perhaps we'll do a round two at some point for an update. You're my first podcast, so it's
Excellent.
exciting.
That
Yeah,
is
it's
excellent.
perfect. So and I'm stoked to do this with you.
Yeah, this was great. I really appreciate it, Genesis. This is, I'm always happy to talk about the product, and especially, you've been such a wonderful, conversationalist back and forth, and we've been talking for, I don't know, maybe a week or two, something like that over
Yeah,
email, and I'm really happy that we were able to get this set up and done, and
yeah,
I'm always looking forward to chatting with you again if it comes around,
yeah,
and the partnership is going to be great. I'm looking
yeah.
forward to it.
And also a review to say to whoever's watching, I am actually a customer of yours. So and it's brilliant. Your customer service is on point. You answer questions. You reply, and so I can check that box right here and right now. So
Awesome.
thank you so much. I
Of
appreciate your
course.
time and look forward to talking to you next time and stay in touch.
Of course, yes. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a honor to be the first.
You're welcome, and thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You have a
Of
good
course.
day.
You as well.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.